Hi there and welcome to another video from Hegarty Maths. It's Mr. Hegarty here, and in this video we're talking about index form again, our sixth video, but this time we're talking of powers, and I'll explain what I mean. Now before we get going, what does 49 to the power of 4 mean? Well, hopefully you know that it means the following: 49 multiplied by 49 multiplied by 49 multiplied by 49, right? We know that. Now here's the new sort of style of question. What does 7 squared, which by the way is 49, I picked that number on purpose, to the power of 4 mean? Well, it must mean 7 squared multiplied by 7 squared multiplied by 7 squared multiplied by 7 squared, right? It's got to mean that. If 49 to the power of 4 means 49 multiplied by itself 4 times, 7 squared to the power of 4 must mean 7 squared multiplied by itself 4 times. But what does 7 squared actually mean? Well, this means 7 times 7, right? And what does this one mean? 7 times 7. And this one, 7 times 7. And this one, 7 times 7. And we're multiplying the 7 squares by each other. So put a multiply in there. Now, how many 7s have we got multiplying together? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is going to therefore be written as 7 to the power of 8. Now, can you spot what I'm trying to show you here? I've showed you that 7 squared to the power of 4 is the same thing as 7 to the power of 8. What am I trying to show you? Well, if you are doing a power raised to another power, so 7 squared, the power's 2, all of that raised to another power, the answer is 7 to the 8. You can just multiply the 4 and the 2 together to get 8. And that's it, done, simple as that. So let's try and formalize that. When simplifying powers of a power, you can multiply the powers. Okay, so let me give you 3 examples here. 7 squared to the power of 4 would be 7 to the 2 multiplied by 4, which will be straight 7 to the power of 8. 5 cubed to the power of 7 would be 5 to the 3 multiplied by 7, which is going to be 5 to the 21. And 2 cubed to the negative 4 is going to be 2, 3 multiplied by negative 4, 3 multiplied by negative 4 is negative 12. And that's how you would do these questions. It's as simple as that. And I just want you to notice the 7 is preserved. 7 squared to the power of 4 is 7 to the 8. We still have our base number of 7. 5 cubed to the 7 is 5 to the 21. We still have the 5 as the base number. 2 cubed to the negative 4 is 2 to the negative 12. That base number doesn't change or get raised to the power of 4 or power of 7. That stays the same. It's the powers only that multiply by each other. And it's as simple as that. So let's try some questions. Okay, we're asked to simplify the following. So 4 squared to the power of 3 is 4 to the 2 multiplied by 3, which is 4 to the 6. That's right. Be careful not to add the powers and say that's 4 to the 5. 5 to the 7 all squared will be 5 to the 7 multiplied by 2, which is 14. 5 to the 7 to the negative 2 would be 5 to the 7 multiplied by negative 2, which would be 5 to the negative 14, as a positive times a negative is a negative. 5 to the negative 7 all to the power of 2 would be 5 to the negative 7 times 2, which again is 5 to the negative 14, because a negative multiplied by positive negative. But the last one, 5 to the negative 7 all to the negative 2, well, that's going to be 5 to the negative 7 multiplied by negative 2, and negative multiplied by negative is positive, so we'll get 5 to the positive 14. And we're done. Evaluate the following. Pause and have a go. Okay, here 2 squared to the power of 3 is going to be 2 to the power of 6. Now can we work out 2 to the power of 6? It's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times another 2 is 8, times another 2 is 16, times another 2 is 32, times another 2 is 64. Because they said evaluate, we needed to give the number answer. So 10 to the power of 4, all to the power of 2, is going to be 10 to the power of 4 multiplied by 2, which is 10 to the power of 8. And that means 10 multiplied by itself 8 times, so let's write that out. Okay, and let's evaluate this. 10 multiplied by 10 is 100, times another 10 is 1,000, times 10, 10,000, times 10, 100,000, times 10, a million, times 10, 10 million, times 10, 100 million. So the answer is going to be 100 million. Last one, 10 squared all to the negative 1, so that's going to be 10 to the 2 multiplied by negative 1. 2 multiplied by negative 1 is negative 2, so 10 to the negative 2, and this means 1 over 10 squared, or 1 over 100, and 1 over 100, or 100th, we should know as 0.01. Okay, so let's try next question. Now, this skill here, I haven't talked about in the video, but we can do based on what we've learned, is going to be so useful for the future and hard questions and future maths. So, let's just go through this together. It says write 64 cubed in the form 2 to the power of something, in the form 4 to the power of something, in the form 8 to the power of something. And this is how I'm going to do that. So 64, I'm going to write cubed like that. Now, how can I write 64 as a power of 2? Well, if you actually look back previously, we've actually done this here. Can you see that 2 to the power of 6 was the same thing as 64? Because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 64. So instead of writing 64 there, I could write 2 to the power of 6. And I could say all of that is cubed. And I know the power of the power rule. The power of the power rule says that I can multiply these, so that's 2 to the 18. So how cool is that? 64 to the power of 3 is the same as 2 to the power of 18. And this skill is going to be crucial in future. Let's try the same thing, but this time we want the base number to be 4. So we're going to write that 64 cubed, we want to write it as 4 to the power of something. Now 4 cubed actually gives us 64, doesn't it? Because 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. So we can replace the 64 with 4 cubed. Now we can just multiply the powers. That's going to be 4 to the power of 9. There we go. Another brilliant use of this little trick here. It's going to be so useful for later on in maths. And lastly, let's do the same thing with 8. 64 cubed. Let's write 64 as 8 to the power of something. We could write that as 8 squared. So we're replacing the 64 with 8 squared. And don't forget that I was cubing that thing. And using my power of the power rule, that's 8 to the power of, that's right, 6. Okay, and I want to go through another useful skill that I'm going to come back to when I'm talking about surds, in fact. Now, we don't know what 2 to the half means yet. I haven't told you that. It's coming soon. But if I asked you to simplify this, by the power of the power rule, that's going to be 2 to the half multiplied by 2. We know 2 multiplied by half is 1. So this is going to be 2 to the 1, which is simply 2. Same thing here, 8 to the third all to the power of 3 is going to be 8 to the third times 3. We know 3 lots of a third are 1. This is 8 to the 1, which is just 8. And I'm sure you can see the same thing going on here. This is going to be 64 to the quarter multiplied by 4, which is going to be 64 to the power of 1, which is 64. Now, I'm just going to come back to that in later, but just to show you, see how 2 to the half squared gave me 2, 8 to the third cubed gave me 8, and 64 to the quarter all to the power of 4 gives me 64. I'm going to use that later. Last thing, let's try and deal with a misconception. Sarah says 2 cubed all to the power of 2 is 4 to the 6. Is Sarah correct? Explain your answer. Well, we know by the power of the power rule that 2 cubed squared is going to be 2 to the 3 multiplied by 2, which is 2 to the power of 6, which is certainly not 4 to the power of 6. But you can see what poor old Sarah did. Sarah, she squared the 2 and got 4, and then she multiplied the powers and got 6. Remember, with the power of the power rule, we still keep our same base number. That 2, we will keep it there. It will not change, okay? So that is a little trick that's easy to fall into, and poor Sarah did. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.